Hello everyone and welcome. In today's video we're talking about how to price shop everything in your budget. If you're trying to save money, you're likely going through your entire budget and cutting out areas that you don't need to spend money in, but there's always going to be areas left in your budget that you can't get rid of. Today's video we're talking about how to save money by price shopping in those areas. First, let's start out with your housing payment. Now, if you own a house, this is going to be a little bit more challenging, but if you rent, this may be pretty easy. For my wife and I, we started paying rent at $1,500 a month with our first apartment out of college. We live on the East Coast, about 45 minutes outside of a pretty major city, and this was pretty expensive. We realized right away that we were spending too much money on this apartment, and it was causing us to not be able to get ahead with our finances because it was just one area of our budget that we were overspending on. We were able to find a nearby apartment that was a little bit smaller and not as nice, but we were going to save $300 a month. This second apartment was $1,200. From there, we just kept looking and also kept an open mindset about possibly moving. Once you get comfortable living in a place, it's easy to stay there and justify any of the expenses, but if you can get it in your head that you're willing to move, it'll open up a number of opportunities. That came around for us about another year later after moving into the second apartment. Some friends of ours were actually renting a small house a little bit further out into the country, but it was at a reduced cost. They were trying to move on to a bigger place, and through a few conversations, they were able to connect us with their landlord. Long story short, this is the house that we currently live in that we are renting for less than $1,000 a month. So just like that, in a matter of 2 years, we went from paying $1,500 a month in a really nice high-end apartment to $1,200 a month in a smaller apartment, now paying less than $1,000 a month in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house on a 1/3 acre lot. Now this only came about because we were willing to make a change and we were proactively looking for deals. Now the house is a once-in-a-lifetime situation for us. You're not always going to have friends that are looking to move from a house that is very low in rent, but in this case, this was a situation where there was an opportunity and we were prepared to meet the opportunity and it worked out for us. There may be opportunities in your area that we will never see, but you will be able to capitalize on that if you're willing to take the steps necessary. Now, we don't enjoy moving, and we didn't want to move for quite some time after these 3 moves, but by having an open mindset and by focusing on your budget and trying to price shop each of the areas, we recognize that if we could reduce our living costs by reducing the amount of rent we were paying, it would help us significantly get ahead financially. The next area is vehicles. When my wife and I graduated college, we both got real jobs and jumped right into a ton of debt. We should not have done that and driven cars that were affordable that simply got us around town. Both my wife and I got cars that were new to us. They were pre-owned cars, but they were both out on car loans. Now, in my mind, I justified the purchase because we just got real jobs and they were pre-owned cars, so I knew that most of the depreciation had already taken place, so I was paying a fraction of the price compared to buying new. I was also looking around at friends around me who are buying brand new economy cars at sometimes double the cost of what I just paid for my car. The reality is, though, I should not be focusing on what other people are spending their money on or the fact that it's a used car, so I'm saving money, which you are, that's great, but the reality is I was putting myself into further debt. I just graduated college with a decent amount of student debt, and I was only digging that hole deeper by buying a car. But at the end of the day, you have to recognize that no one really cares what you drive. At some point in time in your life when it's financially feasible, go ahead and buy a nice car. But if you're looking to get ahead, buying a car on debt should be the last thing that you're doing. So this is something my wife and I learned, that moving forward, we're only going to be buying cars with cash or as much down as possible. In this whole experience, I ended up selling my BMW 3 Series for a beater Honda Civic in order to get ahead financially. I was able to save on insurance costs and gas costs because the BMW took premium fuel and it was all-wheel drive. So if you're looking to price shop different areas of your budget and you have a car loan, see if you're able to get rid of the car and buy something that's a lot cheaper. It will be very challenging to do. Personally, when I bought the BMW, because a lot of the taxes and the fees and everything were financed into the car, I was considered underwater in my loan. That meant that I owed more on the car than what it was worth. It was also depreciating pretty rapidly, so I was even more underwater in the loan. Essentially, I couldn't sell this car for anywhere near what I owed on it, so I ended up having to pay the car off in full. I kept the car for a short amount of time after that, but I did eventually sell it because I figured I would still save more money by buying a beater car versus driving the BMW. Again, that comes back to insurance costs and gas costs versus an alternative vehicle, and you'll have to run the numbers for yourself, but that was something that I experienced where I personally won't go through that again because I learned my lesson. Another area and something that is incredibly practical for everyone to do is your car insurance or other insurances for that matter. If you're familiar with Dave Ramsey and the whole snowball effect, you may also be familiar with what he calls an endorsed local provider. It's also known as an ELP. Essentially, they are insurance providers locally to you that are endorsed by Dave Ramsey. What that means in plain English is that you can likely get a better deal through these local endorsed providers versus going through generic car insurance. For me, I just went on Dave Ramsey's website. I'll plug the website in below. I'm not sponsored by this in any way, but it just helped me. I simply went on his website, punched in my zip code, and it provided local car insurance providers to me. I used one of them, and I saved $40 a month on car insurance for the equivalent coverage versus my old plan. The next area that you can price shop is your groceries. And I'm not telling you to cut back in your groceries, but this is more keeping to your actual budget. Groceries is an area that is very easy to go over budget, and so this process will help you keep to your budget in terms of your groceries. And what I mean by this is by using online ordering services. In our town, we have a local Walmart here that provides this. And in our family, my wife handles the groceries. And what she does is she goes online, puts together her shopping cart of all of her grocery items online rather than in the store. So she still has a shopping cart, it's just virtual. And by doing this, you know exactly how much you're spending before you go to checkout. Now, if you're walking to the grocery store and you're just putting items in your cart, you may generally be able to keep an eye on how much you're spending, but you don't really know unless you're sitting there with a calculator. Now, by going through an online method, you know exactly how much you're spending. And if you've tallied up all the items that you need to buy for the week, and you have overspent, you may be able to sort through your online shopping cart and go through and see if there's any things that you can take off to stick to your budget. This has helped us tremendously stick to our grocery budget every single week because we know exactly how much we're spending before we even check out. Then once she hits the checkout button, her or I will drive down to the local Walmart and we'll pick up our order. So it is very convenient to do this, but it also keeps us on track in terms of our budget. This service may not be provided to you in your area. I know it's growing in popularity, so hopefully it'll come to your area soon, but it has tremendously impacted how much we overspend or don't overspend in our grocery budget. The last area, and probably most obvious, is just either cutting expenses altogether, like cutting subscriptions that you don't really use all that much, or cutting cable, or another concept is do it yourself in terms of what you're spending your money on. Personally, my wife and I don't really go out to eat all that often. She was a culinary arts major, and so that helps us stay home and make a lot of food for ourselves. But this is even applied to me personally. Previously, I could live on cereal 3 meals a day, but I've learned how to cook salmon. Just watching a couple cooking shows, it got me a little fascinated in how to cook a salmon fillet. And now oftentimes I find myself at the grocery store buying a salmon fillet and cooking it at home, spending maybe $5 versus going out to eat and doing the same. So by either cutting out things out of your budget altogether or using do-it-yourself hacks where you can get almost the same experience, not quite the same experience, but a similar one by doing it yourself at a fraction of the cost, it can save you a tremendous amount of money. Before I was tracking my spending, I was buying coffee every single day. Now my wife and I agreed that we're gonna make coffee in batches and keep a container in the refrigerator, and then every morning when we want coffee, we just go in the fridge, pour some coffee, get some ice and some creamer, and we have iced coffee at a fraction of the cost every day. That's just a simple do-it-yourself hack to save you a tremendous amount of money. So hopefully this video has helped you to reflect on your own budget and see, can I find a better renting situation? Maybe if you've owned a house but you're spending too much money, sell it and buy something cheaper. I know that's a lot more complicated than a renting situation, but there's always opportunities out there. And then going through and making sure you're not spending too much money on your cars, and making sure that the next time you buy a car, you're not buying it on debt, but you're trying to save up as much as you can before making that purchase. And then simply log on to Dave Ramsey's website, look up an endorsed local provider for car insurance, and simply save money for yourself just by using a different car insurance provider compared to what you're currently using today. From there, I'd recommend trying the online grocery shopping process to see if that will help you keep to your grocery budget and help you visually see how much you're really spending on your groceries every single week. Then to conclude, there's a lot of different ways that you can simply cut things out of your budget or do it yourself so that you can maintain, say, coffee or eating a nice meal, but doing it yourself to save you even more money. I hope these steps have helped you in at least reflecting on your own budget to see if there's areas that you can tackle. There may be areas in your budget that you can price shop in ways that are totally different than what I've shared with you today. But my hope is that this will help you at least reflect on your budget and see, are there areas that I can save in? You may not be able to cut back altogether, but you can simply go through your budget and think, are there ways that I can save money on the items that are left in my budget? I hope this video has helped you. If it did, I ask that you please like and subscribe. Thank you.